Pak Sojin opened his eyes and saw the sky. Not a ceiling. Not a phone screen. The sky was gray, low, with heavy clouds moving too fast for normal weather. The smell was salt, damp wood, something rotten and at the same time alive, like the smell of an old port after rain, multiplied by 1,000. He was lying on boards. That was the first thing he understood physically. There was wood beneath him. Rough, wet, with gaps between the planks through which water was visible. Dark, almost black, motionless. He sat up. And saw the world. Water was everywhere. Not a sea, there was no horizon with a surf line, there were no waves, there was no shore somewhere far away. Just water. To the horizon in all directions. Quiet, like a huge mirror with an uneven surface. Here and there, the tops of trees stuck out above it dead, leafless, like charred fingers. Here and there, the roofs of buildings sinking into the water up to their ridges. A television antenna. The top of a traffic light. A flagpole without a flag. Sojin was standing on a raft. A square about 4 by 4 meters. Roughly knocked together from boards of different sizes, tied with ropes and in some places fastened with nails. Under the boards, something provided buoyancy. He heard a hollow sound when he stepped closer to the edge. Plastic barrels tied underneath. There was nothing on the raft. Only him. And in the corner, a wooden chest. The chest was old or looked old. Dark wood, with metal corners turned green from moisture. The lock did not require a key, it simply flipped open. Sojin crouched in front of it. Opened it. Inside was empty. He looked into the empty chest for several seconds. Then on the inside of the lid he noticed an inscription carved into the wood, not written. The letters were neat, deep, wait. An hour. He closed the lid. Rose. Slowly walked across the raft 4 steps one way, for the other. Checked the edges, the barrels held well, the structure did not creak critically. Knocked on the boards solid, not rotten. Then sat by the chest. Wrapped his arms around his knees. And began to think because there was nothing else to do. The last thing he remembered, evening, office, project deadline. He worked at a construction company as a specialist in drainage and hydraulic structures. 29 years old, no family in the city, with a habit of staying until midnight. He closed the laptop, stood up to pour coffee. Darkness. Then this sky. He did not scream. Did not fall into panic, at least, not outwardly. Inside everything was like a compressed spring, but on the outside he just sat and looked at the water. Fine, he told himself quietly. Let's assume this is happening. What is there? A 4 by 4 raft. A chest. The clothes on him were work clothes, sturdy, with pockets. In the pockets, a phone with no signal and down to 5% battery, the keys to an apartment that was not here, and a small folding knife. He always carried it, a habit from hiking trips. A folding knife. Sojin took it out. Opened it. The blade was clean, sharp. That's already something, he said aloud. The echo over the water did not answer the water-absorbed sound like a sponge. The hour passed unnoticed. He could not track time without a working phone, but he felt the moment when the chest clicked. Quietly. Just a click. As if some mechanism had activated inside. Sojin opened the lid. Inside lay an object. He took it. Turned it in his hands. A coil of rope. Strong, nylon, about 20 meters. Knew the smell of synthetics, not dampness. He looked at the rope. Then at the water around the raft. Then at the distant dark silhouette to the northwest. There was something there, another raft, or the roof of a building, or just debris. The distance was about 200 meters, maybe 300. He looked at the rope once more. An hour, he repeated the inscription from the chest. So, the next item in an hour. The spring inside loosened a little. Not because it had become safe. But because there was at least something, a rhythm. An hour. An item. A decision about what to do with it. This was not a catastrophe, this was a task. And Pak Sojin knew how to work with tasks. By the evening of the first day, the chest had activated 3 more times. Second hour, an axe. A small carpenter's axe, with a wooden handle. The blade was new, not sharpened perfectly, but usable. Sojin held the axe in his hands and looked at the dead trees sticking out of the water 100 meters to the east. The trunks were dry, looked sturdy. If he could get their material for expanding the raft. But he would have to swim there. The water was dark and cold. He lowered his hand to the wrist and felt, not Arctic cold, but unpleasant. And quiet, barely audible. Something was moving there, deep down. Not waves. Something else. He decided not to swim. Third hour. A tin can. 1. Stewed beans. He opened it with the knife, ate it cold, without regret. His stomach accepted it silently. Fourth hour. Wooden boards. 5 pieces, they appeared in the chest somehow. He did not physically understand how. They were longer than the chest, but they were in it and smelled of fresh wood. Sojin looked at the boards. Then at the raft. Then at the axe. So, we build, he said. He worked until dark. Darkness came sharply without sunset. The sky simply became black, as if someone had switched off the light. There were no stars. There was no moon. Only darkness above the water and darkness in the water. And sounds. That was what was new. The daytime water was silent. The night water was not. At first he decided it was the wind. But there was no wind. The water remained mirror-like. Then he decided it was an auditory hallucination from stress. Possibly. But the sound was specific. Something large was moving under the raft. Slowly, unhurriedly. He felt it not with his ears, with his feet, through the boards. A slight, almost imperceptible movement of water under the decking. As if something very large and very slow was swimming about 5 meters below. Sojin sat in the center of the raft, gripping the axe, and did not move. The movement continued for about a minute. Then it stopped. Silence. He exhaled. Lay down on the boards. Closed his eyes. Sleep did not come at once, but it came. Because there was no choice. Without sleep there would be no strength, without strength there would be no decisions. Pak Sojin fell asleep with the axe in his hand and thought of only one thing: in the morning he had to build higher. On the second day the chest gave, a hammer and nails, a whole little bag, 100 pieces, a piece of tarpaulin 3 by 2 meters, a bottle of water 1.5 liters, with the label of ordinary store-bought water, and on the 4th hour something unexpected. A compass. Old, brass, with cracked glass. But working. The needle pointed north confidently. Sojin looked at the compass for a long time. A compass means navigation. Navigation is needed when there is somewhere to go. So, it is possible to go somewhere. So, the world is not an endless plain of water. There are directions. There is a difference between north and south. He stood up and began looking in every direction carefully, truly carefully, not the first glance out of shock. To the north, a kilometer away, maybe more, a dark spot. Large. Not dead trees, something denser, taller. To the east at about the same distance something is moving. Slowly. Another raft. He is not alone. The moving raft to the east was smaller than his, about 3 by 3 meters. A person stood on it and looked in his direction. The distance was about 300 meters. Sojin waved his hand. After a pause, the person waved back. They looked at each other across 300 meters of water for several minutes. Then Sojin made a decision. Took out the coil of rope from the first day. Tied one end to the edge of the raft tightly, with a double knot around the thickest plank. The other end to himself, around his waist. Looked at the water. Dark. Cold. Quiet. Daytime without those nighttime sounds. He jumped. The water was colder than it looked from above. It burned at once, stole his breath. He forced himself not to panic, steadied his breathing, and swam fast, crawl, without looking down. Don't look down. He swam and thought, 20 meters of rope, that is his radius. If the other person's raft is closer than 20 meters, throw the rope, get a connection. If not, return. But while he was swimming, he felt something. Beneath him. Not a sound, movement of water. A slight change in pressure, like when someone dives nearby in a pool. Only much larger. He swam faster. Through the rope it was not enough, he was short by about 3 meters. The second raft stood too far away. He turned around. Swam back with all his strength, thinking of nothing except the boards above the head of his raft. Climbed out. Lay on the boards and breathed. Under the water nothing. Quiet. As if he had imagined it. The person on the other raft was shouting something from far away, impossible to make out. Sojin raised his hand, alive. The dark spot to the north turned out to be more important than he thought. On the third day he made a paddle crude, from the boards the chest had given, fastened together and bound with rope. Ugly, awkward, but workable. And drove the raft north. An hour's travel and the spot became reality. It was the roof of a large building. What stuck out above the water was about 12 by 8 meters. A concrete surface, with antennas, with ventilation shafts. Flat, obviously, an industrial building or a shopping center. It rose 1.5 to 2 meters above the water. There were already people on the roof. 3 of them. They looked at him from the edge of the roof, 2 men and a woman. All 3 adults, from about 20 to 40. All 3 with the same expression he probably had too, a mixture of shock, exhaustion, and sharp attentiveness. "Hey!" he shouted, paddling closer. "Come here." One of the men answered, a large man, with a beard, with a voice used to speaking loudly. Sojin moored at the edge of the roof. Tied the raft to a ventilation pipe. Climbed onto the roof. Stood and looked at the 3 of them. The bearded one, about 35, strong, in a work jacket. Introduced himself as Han Byamjin. Said briefly, "Truck driver," the last thing he remembers is stopping at a gas station. The second man was younger, thin, with glasses that somehow stayed on the bridge of his nose by a miracle. Im Sunhyan, 23 years old, student. The last thing he remembers is the library, the night before an exam. The woman, about 30, with short hair, with that particular expression of a person who accepted what was happening faster than the others. Cha Yunjong. Emergency room doctor. The last thing she remembers is the end of a night shift. "Does everyone have a chest?" Sojin asked. All 3 nodded. "Once an hour?" "Yes," Yunjong said. "I already have 6 items. Twice food, once a flashlight, once an empty glass jar, once a piece of cloth. And once this." She showed it. A small metal plate. Rectangular, with embossed text. Sojin took it. "Read. Find others. Together is more." He looked at the plate. "Did anyone else have one like this?" Byamjin reached into his pocket. Took out the same plate. "There is a shore. But far away." Sunhyan, a third plate. "The water is not empty. Be careful at night." All 3 looked at the plates. Then at Sojin. "You're thinking the same thing I am," Byamjin said quietly. "These are not random items," Sojin said. "These are messages. Different for different people. We were deliberately separated so that to get the full information we would have to unite." Silence. "Who is doing this?" Sunhyan asked. No one answered. Over the water it was quiet. There was no wind. The clouds moved. "It does not matter yet," Sojin said. "What matters is what we have: a roof, 4 chests, information about the shore." He looked at the roof under his feet. And a good foundation. They worked the entire third day. Sojin explained they did. Not because he became the leader in the first 5 minutes of meeting, but because he spoke concretely and knew what he was doing. Byamjin understood this quickly. A big man with a practical mind, he did not waste time figuring out hierarchy when the task was clear. The rafts, there were 3 of them. Sojin's 4th they pulled with ropes to the edges of the roof. Secured them. It created an expanded perimeter. The roof plus the rafts surrounded a total area of almost 50 square meters. The 4 chests were placed in a row in the center of the roof. By that time they had already activated several times. Byamjin's chest gave a wood saw and a can of sardines. Sunhyan's chest a coil of wire and a bar of soap. Yunjong's chest a first aid kit, small but real, and another plate. The 4th plate. Sojin took it. "At night do not shine too brightly. They see the light." "Who are they?" Sun Hyan asked quietly. The things under the water, Sojin said. Yunjong turned out to be the first person who had seen something with her own eyes. She told them on the third evening when they sat in the center of the roof, covered with the tarpaulin, without fire. The plate said, "Do not shine too brightly." Sojin decided to take it literally. The first night, she said evenly. The voice of a doctor used to unpleasant facts. I did not sleep. I watched the water. And I saw a shadow. What kind of shadow? Byamjin asked. Under the water. Large. Very large. Pause. Glowing. Silence. Glowing. Sun Hyan repeated. Not brightly. As if a cold light came from inside. Bluish. It passed under my raft. Yunjong looked at her hands. I could not assess the size exactly. But the shadow was wider than the raft. The raft is 3 by 3 meters. So, more than 3 meters wide, Sojin said. Much more, Yunjong said. Silence. Maybe a whale. Sun Hyan suggested. The world flooded, sea animals. This is not sea, Sojin said. The smell of the water is fresh. Or very weakly salty. This is not seawater. Then what? No one knew. They sat under the tarpaulin, and the water around was quiet, and Sojin thought that under this silence something was living. Something large, glowing, that notices light. The water is not empty. Be careful at night. Someone knew this in advance. Someone put this information into the chest. Who? On the fourth day the man from the eastern raft came himself. Sojin saw him in the morning. He was rowing with a homemade paddle, stubbornly, against the light current that had appeared during the night. His raft was smaller than Sojin's, and looked worse, the boards uneven, one side sagging. Sojin stood at the edge of the roof and waited. The man paddled up. Raised his head. About 45 years old. Dark-skinned, thin, with calluses on his hands obvious at once. With a look in which there was neither panic nor apathy, but something third, calculation. The man looked at the roof, at the rafts, at the 4 chests, at the 4 people. Counted. May I? He asked. Come on up, Sojin said. He tied up the raft. Climbed onto the roof. Looked around once more, already in more detail. Well done, he said without much emotion. The roof was smart. I thought about roofs, but the nearest one was far away. What's your name? Oh, Dizong. Pause. Former military. The last 8 years private security. Sojin looked at him. Sojin. Hydraulic engineering. Dizong nodded with that professional nod of a person who had heard useful information and put it on the right shelf. Do you have a chest? Sojin asked. Yes. Dizong looked at his raft. This morning it gave something interesting. He reached inside his coat. Took out a plate, the same metal one, with embossing. Sojin took it. Read. Looked at it for a long time. What does it say? Byamjin asked. Sojin read aloud, to the north are enemies. Not everyone who smiles is an ally. To the north. In the same direction where Sojin had seen the large dark spot that turned out to be their roof. But farther north, there was something else. He had not looked carefully there, he had been busy building. Now he looked. On the horizon dimly, but distinguishably, something large. Larger than their roof. Several structures, or one big one. The distance did not allow him to say more precisely. What do you see? He asked Dizong. Your eye is more accurate. Dizong squinted, looked for a long time. A large structure. Not a roof, something built. Wooden walls, roughly. And people. At least 4 or 5 silhouettes. Pause. And a flag. Over the structure. What kind of flag? Dark. Not national, homemade, probably. Dizong lowered his gaze. The distance is about 1.5 kilometers. Sojin looked north. Can they see us? If they have binoculars, yes. Then they have already seen us. Dizong nodded. Then they know we are here, Sojin said. And we learned about them a day later. They have the advantage in information. That is military thinking, Dizong said. That is logic, Sojin said. But it is useful that you think with military thinking. Dizong looked at him. Assessed something. What are you planning? He asked. First to understand who they are. Then decide. On the 5th day the chests began giving different things. Not tools and not food. Or rather not only those. Sojin's chest on the 3rd hour gave a rolled sheet of paper. Thick, waterproof, the kind used for technical drawings. On the sheet was a map. Rough, without scale, but a map. Dots, markings, lines. Sojin spread it out on the roof, weighed the corners down with stones from the ventilation shaft. All 5 gathered around. Here we are, Sojin said. A dot in the center, next to it the mark, roof. Here is north. A large square with a black flag on the map. Here is east. Several small dots. Here is west. A large cross, not a building, but a cross, a marker for something else. What does the cross mean? Yunjong asked. I do not know yet. And this? Sun Haiyan pointed to the lower edge of the map. There was an arrow pointing south, and the inscription, shore. With a question mark. There is a shore. But far away, Sojin remembered Byamjin's first plate. South, he said. The shore is to the south. With a question mark that means the information is uncertain. He looked at the map. But this is a goal. How far to the south? Byamjin asked. There is no scale. I do not know. A week. A month. Depends on what you travel on, Sojin said. On what we have now, a very long time. We need to build something bigger. Dizong looked at the map silently. Then said, that large square in the north they were obviously building. They may have better resources. Or better chests, Sun Haiyan said. The chests are the same for everyone, Sojin said. 1 per person. Which means the more people, the more items per hour. Pause. They may have many people, Dizong said quietly. Or they may take other people's chests, Byamjin said. Heavily, with that meaning that did not need explaining. Other people's chests. That means taking them from others. Whether alive or not. To the north are enemies. Not everyone who smiles is an ally. Sojin rolled up the map. Put it inside his coat. We need more people, he said. Reliable ones. And we need to know who is in the north before they come to us. On the 5th day Sun Haiyan's chest gave something completely unexpected. A book. Small, in a soft waterproof cover. No title on the cover. Sojin opened it at random. It was a diary. Someone else's diary written by hand, in dense, neat handwriting. There were dates but not familiar ones. Simply, Day 1. Day 7. Day 23. Sojin began to read. Day 1. I am on a raft. Alone. The chest activated rope. Water everywhere. I do not understand. Day 3. Found a roof. There are 2 people on it, a woman and an old man. The old man knows something. Says he was here before. That is impossible. Or possible. Day 7. The old man said, this is not the first time. These are cycles. Each time new people. Each time water. Each time someone reaches the shore. Someone does not. Day 12. The old man disappeared at night. Simply disappeared, the raft empty, the chest closed. No traces. The woman says, he always disappears. She has seen this before. She was here before too. Day 15. She explained. Some people are not here for the first time. They remember. Most do not. They help those who do not remember. Day 19. The northern camp sent people. With smiles. Offered an alliance. We agreed. Mistake. Day 23. The last entry. They came at night. Took everything. The chests. Supplies. They did not touch us physically. Just took and left. Now we have nothing. If someone finds this, do not believe those who come from the north smiling. Check. Always check. Sojin closed the diary. Looked at the cover. Then raised his eyes to the 4 people around him, who were reading from his face what was written there. This happened before, he said. Other people. Another cycle. Cycles, Sun Hyen repeated quietly. Like. A game on repeat. I do not know. Sojin looked north. But that person wrote the truth about the northern camp. It matches Dizong's plate. So the information is reliable, Dizong said. Not a question, a statement. Most likely. And the old man who remembers the cycles, Byamjin said slowly. A person like that could be here now. Somewhere on the water. Sojin looked at the map's western direction. At the cross. There, he said. They went toward the cross on the 6th day. Sojin and Dizong. The 2 of them no more were needed, the raft was small, speed mattered more than weight. Yunjong stayed in charge, chests, supplies, observation. Byamjin construction, over these days he had understood the system and worked without explanations. Sun Hyen records, the guy kept a detailed journal of everything the chests gave, with dates and descriptions. Sojin asked. Sun Hyen started without questions. The raft moved slowly. The paddles were awkward, the work monotonous. The water was mirror-like, the sky gray. Do you think there is a person there who remembers? Dizong asked halfway there. I think the cross on the map is not a random mark. The map was drawn by someone who knew what was there. That means they had been there. Or got information from someone who had. Dizong rode. Was silent for a minute. Doesn't it bother you that the map appeared in the chest? He asked. It bothers me constantly, Sojin said honestly. Someone controls the chests. Someone knows enough to give us what we need at the right time. This is not random. We are in someone's game. And you keep playing. I have no other option. Pause. But I am trying to understand the rules faster than they expect. Dizong looked at him from the side. That is why you read the diary 3 times. 4, Sojin said. The cross on the map turned out to be an old raft. Very old, the boards darkened from water and time, the ropes partly rotted. But it held. There were many things on it stacked neatly, like in a pantry, piles of canned food, coils of rope, tools, several items that Sojin did not immediately identify. And a chest. Closed, old, with the same brass lock. But not like theirs. Different. Darker, with carving on the lid, a pattern that their chests did not have. And a person. He sat in the far corner of the raft, small, dry, very old. In a dark cloak, despite the absence of cold. Looked at them as they approached without surprise, without fear. Simply waited. I have been waiting a long time, he said when they moored. His voice was quiet, but steady. Sit down. Sojin and Dizong exchanged glances. Sat down. The old man looked at Sojin for a long time, studying him, the way one looks at something in which one is trying to find something familiar. You saw the diary, he said. Not a question. How do you know? Because I wrote it, said the old man. His name was Jong Minu. Or that was what he said, that the name did not matter, because it changed each cycle. But Minu was what he called himself now. He spoke slowly, without excess. Sojin listened and did not interrupt. He knew how to listen. This is the 7th cycle I remember, Minu said. In the first one I was like you. Shock. Then acceptance. Then I reached the shore. On the shore darkness, then you wake up here again. In the 2nd cycle I remembered a little. In the 3rd more. Now I remember everything. What is this? Sojin asked. Where did the water come from? Who controls the chests? Minu shook his head. That I do not know. I know the rules. The mechanics. Not the source. Then the rules. Minu raised one finger. The chests give what is needed, not what is wanted. Sometimes it seems useless. Then you understand. You always understand later. Second finger, the shore exists. I reached it. But each time differently. The route changes. Third, what lives in the water are not enemies. They were always here. Before people. They do not attack first. But if a human attacks, they respond. Fourth, the northern camp. In every cycle there is one like that. People who understood that chests are power, and decided to collect other people's. Each cycle different people. One logic. Pause. They do not reach the shore. Not once in 7 cycles. Why? Minu looked at the water. Because the chest stops giving useful things to the one who takes from others. It begins to give trash. Rotten food. Broken things. He fell silent. This is not punishment. It is mechanics. The chest senses intention. Sojin looked at him. How do we reach the shore? Together, Minu said simply. Every time when they make it, it is a group. Always different. But together. How many people? It varies. The minimum I have seen is 9. The maximum 27. We have 5 right now. I know. Minu stood up slowly, with effort, but stood up. That is why we need more. He pointed at the map, which Sojin had not taken out, but which the old man had clearly seen before. East. There are several rafts there. Lone people. Frightened. They need someone to trust. And you? Minu looked at his old raft. I am going with you, he said. If you will take me. Sojin looked at him for a second. We take him, he said. They returned to the roof in the evening with Minu and his old raft in tow. Yunjong met them at the edge, looked at the old man, at the raft, at the chest with the carving. She asked nothing at once, only pointed inward, eat first. They all sat together, and Sojin briefly retold the conversation with Minu. Not all of it, only what concerned practical matters. Minu listened. Sometimes added details. He spoke little but precisely. Sun Hyan wrote in the journal at such speed that it seemed his hand could not keep up with his head. After dinner night. And that night, the thing happened that changed everything. Sojin did not sleep, he was on watch, his turn. He sat at the northern edge of the roof, looking at the water. Quiet. Very quiet. Then light. Under the water. Bluish, moving slowly, exactly what Yunjong had described. But not one source. Several. They moved deep down 15 meters, maybe 20, and each was blurred, without clear outlines, like fire through frosted glass. Sojin watched. Then one of the lights stopped. Directly under the roof. And began to rise. Sojin did not move. Watched. Felt his heart beating too loudly, physically loudly, as if the water could hear. The light rose slowly. 15 meters. 10. 5. Then stopped directly under the decking, about 30 centimeters below the boards. That same blue light seeped through the gaps between the planks, quiet, not blinding. Sojin lay flat on the roof and looked through the cracks in the boards. And saw it. An eye. Huge, bluish-white, without a pupil, or the pupil was so large that it occupied everything. It was looking up from below through the gap between the boards. Calmly. Without aggression. It was simply looking. Sojin and the creature looked at each other through 30 centimeters of wood and water. 10 seconds. 20. A minute. Then the light began to descend. Slowly, without haste. Down. 5 meters. 10. Then horizontally, and dissolved into the darkness of the water. Sojin lay still for a long time. Then sat up. His hands trembled slightly. He acknowledged it honestly, without self-deception. His hands were trembling. That was normal. He woke Minu. The old man listened. Was not surprised, only nodded. I saw it, Sojin said. An eye the size of... I don't know. Very large. Blue light. That is a watcher, Minu said quietly. That is what I call them. Every cycle they are there. Pause. They watch. They always watch. Why? Minu was silent for a long time. I think, he said at last, that they are here the way we are in the chest. Waiting. Evaluating something. But not enemies. Not once in 7 cycles have they touched people who did not attack. What happens if they are attacked? In the 3rd cycle one man threw a torch into the water. He got scared. Saw the light below and threw the torch. Minu looked at the water. The raft was overturned in 7 seconds. From below. They simply lifted it and flipped it. Silence. Don't attack, Sojin said. Don't attack, Minu confirmed. Sojin looked at the water for another minute. And if they are observing us, then they know about the northern camp. Yes. And about what those people do to others. Yes. And they do not interfere. Minu shook his head. They do not interfere in human affairs. Only if they themselves are threatened. Sojin nodded slowly. Then the northern camp is for us to deal with ourselves. On the 7th day a boat came from the north. Not a raft, a boat. A real one, wooden, rowed, for 4 people. Painted black. Sojin did not understand where paint came from in this world, but it was there. 4 people at the oars. A 5th at the bow. The 5th was young, about 25. Pleasant face. Good clothes, clean, unwrinkled. A smile. Not everyone who smiles is an ally. Sojin stood at the edge of the roof. Beside him Dizong, without a smile, his hands at his waist. The boat came up. The young man stood. Hello. He said easily. I'm Pyo Taeho, from the northern camp. We wanted to get acquainted with the neighbors. Hello, Sojin said evenly. You found a good place. Taeho looked over the roof, the rafts, the structure. Smart. We have something similar, only bigger. We've already been building actively for 5 days. How many of you are there? 15, Taeho said readily. 2 readily. A big group, many chests. We get a lot of things. Pause, a smile. We thought maybe we could unite. We have more resources, you have a good place. Sojin looked at him. What do you mean by unite? Well, you move to us, or we come here. Chests together, resources together. Chests are personal, Sojin said. Each stays with its owner. Taeho blinked slightly. A second, no more. But Sojin caught it. Of course, Taeho said. I meant sharing what we receive. In a friendly way. Good idea, Sojin said. But we are still settling in for now. How about in a couple of days? Of course. Taeho smiled again. We are nearby. If you need anything, come over. The boat moved away. Sojin watched it go. Dizong stood beside him. They have 15 chests, he said quietly. But look at the boat. Where did the paint come from? Where did that guy get normal clothes? Chests don't give things like that. No, Sojin agreed. That means they have more than 15 chests. Which means, Sojin said, they are lying about the number of people. Or taking what belongs to others. Or both. Dizong watched the departing boat. Dizong, Sojin said, did you see how that guy blinked when I said personal chests? I did. That was not just a nervous tick. No. It was a recalculation of the plan, Dizong said. He came here with a specific purpose, and he was told something he did not expect. Sojin nodded. They will come at night, he said. Dizong looked at him. Why are you so sure? Because the diary says, they came at night, Sojin said. That is their method. Why change what worked before? They prepared all day. Sojin explained without panic, technically. What could happen? What had to be done? He assigned the roles quickly, Dizong observation and the first line. Byamjin physical defense of the perimeter. Yunjong the chests and Minu in safety. Sunhyan the journal, observation, and the alarm. What do you mean by alarm? Sun Hyan asked. Sojin took a coil of wire from the supplies from Sun Hyan's chest, day 2. Held it out. Stretch it around the perimeter between the rafts. At knee height. Tie several tin cans to it. If someone steps onto the rafts at night, the cans will rattle. Sun Hyan looked at the wire. Nodded. Minu watched this silently. Then said, "You are doing what no one did in the previous cycles." "What exactly?" "Preparing for what you think. Most hoped it would work out somehow." "Hope is not a plan," Sojin said. Minu looked at him with the same expression as at their first meeting. "No," the old man agreed. "Not a plan." They came in the 3rd hour of the night. Not noisily, quietly. The same boat, black. But different people, not Taeho. For large men in dark clothes, with oars wrapped in cloth so they would not splash. Professionally. Dizong woke Sojin a minute before the first can rang out. He just touched his shoulder and the other woke instantly. "They're coming," Dizong whispered. 4 of them. From the west. From the west. Sojin quickly reoriented himself mentally. Not from the north. They went around. Smart. Sojin stood up without raising his head above the edge of the roof. Found Byongjin with his eyes. He was already on his feet, with a long board in his hands. Not a weapon, a lever. For what Sojin understood immediately and nodded. The wire on the western raft tightened. The cans rattled quietly, but in the night silence over the water that was enough. 4 seconds of silence. Then quick footsteps on the boards of the western raft. They did not retreat. Which meant they knew they had been detected and decided to force it. The first jumped from the raft to the edge of the roof and met Byongjin. Byongjin did not fight beautifully. He fought effectively like a man who had done physical work all his life and understood mass and point of support. The board went not like a club but like a lever, into the first man's knee. He fell. Byongjin pinned him from above, simply lay on him, using his weight, and that man went nowhere. The second jumped and got Dizong. Dizong fought differently, short, precise, without extra movement. The former military man worked economically, 2 quick movements, a grab, a joint lock, and the second was lying face down on the roof with his arm twisted. The third and fourth froze at the edge of the raft. Sojin stood before them. Nothing in his hands. He stood straight and looked at them evenly. "Leave," he said. Without shouting. "We do not touch you, you leave. That is the only option that ends well for everyone." The third one, large, broad-shouldered, looked at his 2 men on the roof. Then at Sojin. "You knew," he said. Not aggressively, almost surprised. "I knew," Sojin said. "How?" "The diary," Sojin said. "The one you robbed before warned the ones who came next." The fourth one, very young, no older than 20, was looking at the water to the side of the raft. Sojin noticed his gaze and understood, the boy was afraid. Not of them, of the water. Of what was under the water. He was right to be afraid. "Your 2 leave with you," Sojin said. "Without chests. Without our things. Pause. And tell Taeho, next time it will be worse." The third man looked at him for another second. Then nodded. Byongjin released the first. Dizong the second. Both rose slowly, with that particular humiliation of people who had lost not where they expected to lose. All 4 left in the boat. Quietly. Sojin watched them go. "They will return," Dizong said. "Yes," Sojin agreed. "But not right away. They need to rethink things. And we need to use that time." On the 8th day they went east to all the points on the map that Minu had called loners. Minu stayed. He could not row for long, his age. The other 5 went on 2 rafts, Sojin and Sun Hyan on one, Dizong and Byongjin on the other. Yunjong remained at the base. The east turned out to be richer than it had seemed from a distance. The first loner, a middle-aged woman, Seo Mayan. An accountant. She sat on her raft and wove something out of ropes methodically, without stopping. When Sojin came up, she raised her eyes without much surprise. "I saw you 3 days ago," she said. "I was waiting for you to come over." Why didn't you come yourself? I didn't know whether you could be trusted. And now you do. She looked at him for a second. No, she said honestly. But I have nowhere else to go. Sojin appreciated the honesty. We take her, he said. The second two people. An elderly man and his 16-year-old nephew. Choi Yongguk and Choi Minsu. The older one, a former fisherman, knew the water better than anyone Sojin had met here. The younger one silent, with quick hands and a habit of touching and taking everything apart. The fisherman looked at the water differently from the others. The current changes there, he said as they were sailing back, pointing to a dark patch of water to the south. See how the ripples move? That's not the wind. What is it? Something is moving below, the fisherman said calmly. Large. I've seen it before. Pause. They are curious. Sojin looked at him. You have seen them. Out of the corner of my eye. At night. The fisherman shrugged. I fished for 40 years. I have seen all kinds of things in the water. These are different. But not evil. Minu says the same. Who is Minu? You'll meet him soon. The third loner was found by accident. Sun Hyen noticed a signal, a small mirror reflecting the gray light of the sky. Someone was deliberately sending flashes. They found him under a dead tree. The raft was tied to the trunk, almost hidden. A young man, about 30, with nervous hands and the look of a person who had seen something bad. Im Jong-hwan. A programmer. He did not want to go with them. There, in the north, he said. They walk on the water. Looking for people. I saw them taking. What do you mean taking? Sojin asked. A raft. A chest. A person. Jong-hwan spoke quickly, swallowing the ends of words. There was a guy there alone, on a small raft. They came up, he thought it was help. They took his chest, broke his raft, threw him into the water. Silence. Did he get out? Sun Hyen asked quietly. Jong-hwan did not answer. He did not need to. Sojin looked at him. Mr. Jong-hwan. It is dangerous there. Here is not completely safe either. But there are already 8 of us. Soon there will be more. One person in the water is just one person in the water. Do you understand? The other man looked at the water. I understand, he said at last. Then tie up your raft. By the evening of the 8th day there were 11 people at the base. Sojin looked at them sitting on the roof, on the rafts, by the chests. Different in age, in experience, in how they carried themselves. But alive. And here. 11 chests. 11 items an hour. The system began to breathe differently. The chests began to give something else. Not worse, not better, different. As if the scale of the group had changed something in the logic of distribution. Choi Yongguk's chest, the old fisherman's chest, gave a net. A real fishing net, small but workable. The fisherman took it in his hands. Looked at it for a long time. Well now, he said quietly. Now there will be food. He set the net that same evening. In the morning there were fish in it, 5 of them, of an unfamiliar kind, with bluish scales. The fisherman examined them, smelled them, cut off a small piece, tasted it. You can eat them, he said. The taste is strange. But they are not poisonous. The first proper food in 8 days. They ate in silence. Sun Hyen was writing in the journal with that particular expression of a person who understands that he is recording something important. Seo Mayan's chest gave boards many, a whole stack. She herself began sorting them by type and size before Sojin said anything. What are we building? She asked in a businesslike way. A second tier above the roof, Sojin said. We need height for observation and for defense from above. What angle of incline? Sojin looked at her. Are you a builder? An accountant? But my father was a carpenter, she said without extra explanation. The angle. 20 degrees, Sojin said. So the rain runs off, but you can still stand on it. She nodded. And started. Silent Minsa, the fisherman's nephew, got something strange from his chest. A glass sphere. The size of a fist. Transparent, but inside there was something dark, like a cloud of ink, moving slowly. No one knew what it was. Minu took it. Held it. Looked through it at the water. There was one like this in the fourth cycle, he said slowly. The same sphere. That person threw it into the water, thought it was trash. What happened? Nothing bad, Minu said. But the watchers did not come that night. Pause. Maybe the sphere is somehow connected to them. Maybe not. He returned the sphere to Minsu. Don't throw it into the water. Minsu nodded and put the sphere in his pocket. After that, Sojin sometimes noticed that the boy would take it out and look through it at the water. The dark cloud inside always moved a little differently. They built the second tier for 3 days. The chests gave material steadily as if they knew construction was underway. Boards, nails, fasteners. Once a small building level. Mayan took it with the look of a person who had received a gift. By the end of the third day there was a wooden platform above the roof 3 meters high, with railings, with a small covered booth for the lookout. From it the horizon was visible in all directions much farther than from the roof. Sojin climbed up first. Looked. To the north the large structure of the northern camp. Now he could see the details, several levels, the dark flag, the movement of people. A lot of movement, they were clearly building actively. And he narrowed his eyes something else. Several small rafts next to their base. Tied up. Other people's rafts. Empty. He counted 4, 5, 6 empty rafts at the northern base. Dizong, he called. The other men climbed up. Looked. 6 rafts, Dizong said at once. Without owners. 6, Sojin repeated. Which means at least 6 people are either with them, or in the water, Dizong finished. Sojin looked at the northern base for a long time. We need information from inside, he said at last. Dizong looked at him. You want to send someone there? Not send. Ask. A volunteer. Who would go voluntarily to people who throw others into the water? Someone they do not know, Sojin said. They need new people, new chests. If a loner comes, they will take him in gladly. Dizong thought. Zhonghuan, he said. Why him? Because he has nervous hands and a frightened look. They will think he is weak. Pause. But he hid under a dead tree and sent mirror signals for 3 days. That is not a weak man. That is a cautious one. Sojin looked at Dizong. You read people well. Professional habit, Dizong said briefly. Zhonghuan agreed. Not at once. First he was silent for a long time, looking at the water. Then he said, if I find those they took alive in there, should I somehow let you know? Yes. A mirror, Sojin said. 3 long signals means found. 2 short ones danger, get out yourself. Zhonghuan nodded. How long should I stay there? 1 day. 2 at most. What if they take my chest? If the chest is with you, they will keep you nearby, Sojin said. They need the items, not you. As long as it gives items you are valuable. And when I stop being valuable? Sojin looked at him honestly. Leave before that. Zhonghuan was silent once more. All right, he said. Zhonghuan left on the morning of the 10th day. Sojin watched from the upper tier as the small raft moved north. For a long time. Until it merged with the gray surface of the water. Then he climbed down. The work did not stop. Meanwhile the chests continued to work, and on the 10th day something unexpected happened to 2 people at once. Sojin's chest gave paper and pencils. A lot of paper, a whole notebook, thick, waterproof. And 3 pencils. He took them and immediately began drawing schemes for expanding the base, which he had been holding in his head for several days already. The fisherman Yongguk's chest gave rope and an anchor. A small iron anchor, rusty but workable. The fisherman looked at the anchor for a long time. This is important, he told Sojin. To fix the base in place. Not only that. The old man ran his finger along the chain. The current is changing. I can feel it, the water is starting to move. Slowly. Not dangerous yet. But if it gets stronger, we will be carried away. Pause. We need to catch the bottom. How deep is it here? I don't know. The rope we have may not be enough. Sojin thought. How many chests give rope regularly? Sun Hyen raised his eyes from the journal. 4 chests in 10 days have given rope a total of 7 times, he said at once. About 180 meters in total. Is there more in reserve? About 60 meters. That makes 240, Sojin said. If the bottom here is no deeper than 200 meters, it will be enough. That is a lot, said the fisherman. Or very little, said Sojin. Let's try to measure it. They measured it that same day, lowering a tide weight on a rope, unwinding meter after meter. At 118 meters the rope went taut. The bottom. 118 meters. The fisherman nodded almost with relief. It will be enough, he said. The anchor went down. The rope tightened. The base stopped drifting, it held in place, like a ship at anchor. Sojin stood and looked at the taut rope. Something had changed in the feeling of the base, not physically. It was simply that now it was a place. Not temporary. A place. On the second day after Jongwon left a mirror signal. 3 long ones. Found. Sojin looked from the upper tier through a hand shaded like a visor. There was no sun, but the flash of the mirror was readable. 3 long ones. Then a pause. Then 1 short one. That was not an agreed code. What is he adding? Sun Hyen asked quietly beside him. He wants to say something, Sojin said. Something we did not agree on. He watched the signal. 1 short one. Pause. 1 short one. Pause. 1, Sun Hyen said. 1 person. Or 1 something, Sojin said. Then again 3 long ones. Found 1. Alive. Dizong asked behind his back. There was no way to ask about that, they had not agreed on such a code. Then he will return soon, Dizong said. He is smart, he will figure out how to leave on his own. They waited. Jongwon returned by the evening of the same day. Without the raft remained there. He swam back. Climbed onto the western raft, lay on the boards, and for several minutes simply breathed. Yunjong was beside him in 30 seconds with water and dry clothes. When he could speak, he spoke briefly, to the point. Sojin listened and did not interrupt. The northern camp had a name among themselves, it was called the Arkansas. A man named Ryu Sonyun was in charge. Not Taeho was the intermediary, the face for first contact. Sonyun stayed in the shadows. There were 23 people. Not 15, as Taeho had said. 23. Of them? Sojin asked. About half voluntarily, Jongwon said. The rest? I don't know. There are several people who live separately, without freedom of movement. Food is brought to them. The chests stand with them, but the keys are with the guards. Chests without owners do not work, Minu said quietly. They do work if the owner is nearby, Sojin said. They keep people with the chests. Like living keys. Silence. How many like that? Dizong asked. I saw 4, Jongwon said. Maybe more. Those 6 empty rafts, Sojin said quietly. I asked carefully. I was told, rafts from those who left voluntarily. Jongwon was silent for a moment. But one guy from the guards, young, I saw him looking at the empty raft somehow. Wrongly. How? Like people look at something it is better not to think about. Sojin sat and thought. 4 living people kept by the chests. 6 empty rafts. The math gave an unpleasant result. The 1 person you found alive. Yes. A woman, about 40. Her raft was beside the Arkansas. She was not officially a prisoner, just afraid to leave. They told her, she says, alone in the water you won't survive. Her name? Nam Yunhai. Former teacher. Why did you leave her there? Jongwon looked at him. Because if I had taken her at once, I would not have had time to get away myself. Pause. But she knows we are here. I told her where we are and how to get here. Quietly, when no one could hear. Sojin nodded. Good, he said. Then stood up. Went up to the upper tier. Looked north at the dark structure of the Ark a kilometer and a half away. 23 people. 4 kept by the chests. 6 empty rafts. Son-yun, who stays in the shadows. Taeho with his smile. And Nam Yunhai, the teacher, who is afraid to go out into the water alone. Sojin looked at the horizon and put together a plan slowly, like a construction drawing, detail by detail. On the 12th day the watchers came not at night. In the daytime. For the first time in the light. Or rather, in the gray diffused illumination that passed here for daytime. The fisherman Yongguk noticed first. He always noticed the water first. He simply stood up from the net and said calmly, without panic, "Look down." Everyone looked. Under the base at a depth of about 10 meters, no more something was glowing. Not one creature. 3. They moved slowly, in circles, around the driven anchor post as if studying it. The blue light pulsed rhythmically. Each had its own rhythm, but there was some kind of synchrony between them, which Sojin caught after several seconds of watching. One pulsed frequently quickly. The second slowly. The third moderately. "They are talking," Sun Hyan said quietly. Sojin looked at him. "You think so?" The rhythm changes when one finishes and another begins. Sun Hyan was already writing in the journal, with a pencil, quickly. "It is a pattern. Not random." Minsa the fisherman's silent nephew took out the glass sphere. Everyone looked at him. The dark cloud inside the sphere was moving quickly, much faster than usual. Pulsating. "It is reacting," Minsa said quietly. The first long sentence Sojin had heard from him in 12 days. At them. At their light. Sojin looked at the sphere. Then at the water. "Minu," he called. The old man came over. Looked down for a long time. In the 4th cycle, he said slowly, there was one man. A scientist. A biologist. He observed them longer than anyone and kept records. He said he understood something before we reached the shore. What did he say? That they do not simply live in the water. That the water is theirs. Pause. And that this flooded world is not an accident. It is their world. We are guests here. Silence. The 3 glowing creatures kept circling under the base. Did the biologist reach the shore? Yunjong asked. Yes, Minu said. One of those who made it. What did he do differently? He was not afraid to look down, Minu said simply. The creatures left after 20 minutes. They simply descended deeper, the light fading gradually, the way a screen goes dark. And that was all. The water became dark and opaque again. But now, after seeing them in daylight, something changed in the group. The fear did not grow stronger. Fear, strangely enough, lessened. Because fear is strongest when the unseen remains unseen. Once you have seen it, it is something concrete. And with something concrete, you can work. The fisherman Yongguk took out the net. Examined it. Said to Sojin, they do not eat my fish. I would have noticed the tears would have been different. So, they eat something else. That means they are not competitors, said the fisherman. Fishermen do not fight fishermen if there is enough fish. Sojin looked at him. You are a philosopher, Mr. Yongguk. A fisherman, the men said. It is the same thing. On the 13th day Nam Yunhai arrived. By swimming. Without a raft she could not take the raft without being noticed, so she took only the chest, tied it to herself, and jumped into the water in the pre-dawn darkness. 1.5 kilometers. In dark cold water. At night. When they pulled her onto the raft she was trembling but silent. Yunjong took her into the covered section. Sun Hyan brought hot water. Someone from the group's chest had given a small metal flask that day. Sojin waited until Yunhai had warmed up. Then sat down beside her. Tell me about Son-yun, he said. Yunhai looked at her hands. He is smart, she said. Very smart. And he knows what he is doing. Pause. He studied the chests. Kept records. Quickly figured out that a chest gives worse things if its owner does bad things. So he does not do anything bad himself. Others do it for him. Yes. Yunhai raised her eyes. Taeho thinks he is Sangyeon's right hand. And Sonyeon does not stop him from thinking that. But in reality Taeho is expendable. Sonyeon never tells anyone the whole truth. Only what is needed at the moment. Sojin thought. Does he know about the Watchers? Yes. He saw one once. Yunhai fell silent for a moment. He tried to communicate with them. He threw different objects into the water. Watched the reaction. What was the reaction? None, Yunhai said. They simply left whenever he started. Sojin nodded slowly. Ms. Yunhai, he said. You are a teacher. What subject? History. That means you know how to find patterns. I tried, she said. There, with them. Pause. Mr. Sojin, they have something that I do not understand. In the ark itself. In the center, on the lower level, a locked room. No one goes there except Sonyeon. Did you see what was inside? Once the door was slightly open. I walked past. Yunhai looked at the water. There was light in there. Blue. Silence. Blue, Sojin repeated. Like the light from the water below. Only locked inside a room. Sojin stood up. Climbed to the upper tier. Looked at the ark dark, with the flag, and thought about the locked room with the blue light. About the sphere with the dark cloud inside that reacted to the Watchers. About the fact that the chests give worse things to those who do bad. About the map with the arrow pointing south. Everything was coming together into something. He still did not see the full picture, but the outlines were beginning to appear. On the 14th day, Sojin gathered everyone. 12 people. Yunhai became the 12th. They sat on the roof in a semicircle. Sojin stood by the central post of the second tier. We need to decide two things, he said. First, the Arkansas. Second, the South. In what order? Dizong asked. In parallel. Sojin spread out the map. We need information from Sangyeon's locked room. And we need those four whom he keeps with the chests. Do they need to be freed? Mayan asked. They need to be given a choice, Sojin corrected. Not freed, offered a chance to leave. On their own. Because if we go there by force, that is war. 12 against 23. We could fight too, Byamjin said without much militancy, just an assessment. No, Dizong said. Not now. They have more people, they know their camp, they have a boat. Then what? Byamjin asked. Then smarter, Sojin said. He explained for a long time. In detail. Each person got a role not by desire, but by ability. The fisherman Yongguk, observation of the water and warning of an attack from an unexpected direction. Mayan, construction of a false target, something that would distract the ark's attention to the west. Dizong, direct contact, negotiations. Yunhai, navigation inside, if they had to enter. Zhonghwan, communications. And Minu for something special. The old man listened silently. When Sojin finished, he nodded. In the sixth cycle, Minu said, there was a similar situation. Similar, not the same. There too was a man who kept others under his control. And then? What happened then? Minu fell silent. The chests of the northern camp began giving only one item, he said. The same one. Every chest, every hour. The same thing. What exactly? A compass, Minu said. Every time a compass. One after another. Until the camp fell apart. Silence. The chest was showing them the way, Sun Hyan said quietly. Or telling them they were going in the wrong direction, Sojin said. Minu looked at him. You understand quickly, the old man said. I understand quickly enough not to repeat other people's mistakes, Sojin said. The rest is still in progress. The operation began on the 15th day, at dawn. Dawn here was always the same. The gray sky became slightly lighter. But today there was something different. In the west, far away, the sky was lighter than usual. Not dawn, something else. A steady, calm light, without a source. Sojin was looking at it from the upper tier. "Minu," he called. The old man climbed up beside him. Looked west. "In the 5th cycle," he said quietly, "such a light appeared 3 days before the path south opened." Sojin slowly turned toward him. 3 days. About that. Minu did not take his eyes off the western horizon. It is not exact. Maybe 2. Maybe 4. 3 days. Sojin looked west. Then north, at the dark silhouette of the arc. Then he made a decision. "We are changing the plan," he said. "There is less time than I thought." Dizong went to the ark alone on a small raft, unarmed, with his hands raised from far away. They let him in. Taeho came out personally, smiling. The smile was no longer as confident as during the first visit. Dizong spoke evenly, without threats. "You have 4 people without freedom of movement. We offer them a choice to leave with us. Voluntarily. You do not interfere. In return we give you information." "What information?" Taeho asked. "The path south. In 3 days at most the way will open. Without it you will not find it." Taeho looked at him. Went away for several minutes, apparently to Sonyeon. Came back. "What does it mean, the way will open?" "You will find out when you start going the right way. We need specifics. Specifics after the 4 come out." Taeho left again. Dizong waited calmly, with his hands on his knees. Waited a long time. Almost an hour. Then from the depths of the ark 4 people came out slowly, cautiously, like people who did not fully believe it yet. 3 men and 1 woman. All with chests in their hands. Dizong stood up. "Will you give us a boat?" he asked Taeho. Taeho hesitated for a second. "We will." They returned in the boat. Dizong and the 4 freed people, who did not say a word the whole way. They just sat and looked, some at the water, some at the sky, some at the chest in their hands. Sojin met them at the edge. The 4 looked at the base, at the 2nd tier, at the rafts around the roof, at the fishing net, at the anchor rope, at the people. One of the men, about 50, with a quiet face, spoke first. "You built this in 2 weeks?" "Yes," Sojin said. The men kept looking. "I am an architect," he said quietly. "Hong Seongyu." Sojin looked at him. Then at the base. At what they had built without an architect. "Now it will be better," he said. 16 people. 16 chests. 16 items an hour. The base lived, breathed, was built, expanded. The architect Hong Seongyu looked at the construction of the 2nd tier with the professional expression of a man who has many comments, but sees the main thing: it stands. "A buttress is needed here," he was telling Mayan, pointing at the corner. "I know," Mayan said. "Give me a board." They worked well together, 2 people with different educations and the same attitude toward the work. Minu sat in his corner and looked west at that quiet light, which was growing a little brighter every few hours. Sun Hyen wrote everything down. The fisherman Yongguk caught fish and sometimes stopped and looked at the water for a long time with that special fisherman's gaze that sees not the surface, but the depth. And Sojin thought about the locked room in the Arkansas. About the blue light. About the fact that Sonyeon had found something or caught something and did not understand what to do with it. On the 17th day the ark sent a boat again. Not Taeho, another man. Elderly, wearing glasses. Came up, raised a hand peacefully. They let him onto the base. He introduced himself, Kwon Ilho. Former professor. Said he had come on his own initiative, not from Sonyeon. "Does Sonyeon know you are here?" Sojin asked. "No," the professor said. "He thinks I am on the lower level." Pause. "I do not have much time. I want to tell you about the room." Sojin stood up straight. "Speak." The professor spoke quietly, quickly. Sonyeon found a creature, one of the watchers. He did not catch it by force, it got trapped on its own. It was stuck in a gap between 2 rafts that had shifted because of the current. Alive, but immobilized. Sonyeon put it in the locked room. The creature is alive. But it does not glow the way the others do. More weakly. And the other watchers stopped coming close to the ark, Sojin said. Not a question. The professor looked at him. You knew. I guessed. I tried to explain to Sonyeon that this was wrong. That the creature needed to be released. He says it gives information. He is studying it. What information? He thinks the creature's light is the key. To the shore. That if you understand how the light works, you will find the way. Sojin looked at the professor. Is he wrong? I do not know whether he is right or wrong, the professor said. But I do know that the creature is getting weaker. And that the watchers have not come near the ark for 4 days already. Sojin thought. The western light that was growing brighter every few hours. The path opens in 1 day, at most 2. The watchers who had stopped coming to the Arkansas professor, Sojin said, how did the creature get into the gap between the rafts? By accident. The current. There is no current, Sojin said. I checked. The water stands still. The professor looked at him. You think? I think it got there on purpose, Sojin said quietly. And I think Sonyeon did not understand that. Pause. It came so that it would be found. The question is why. When Minu heard, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, in the 3rd cycle. One man told a story he had heard from another who had reached the shore earlier. The old man spoke slowly, as if he were pulling something up from the depths of memory. That man saw a creature close to the surface, at night. Not underwater right beside him. He said it showed him a direction. Showed. The light. In a certain direction. He went there and found the path to the shore. Sojin looked west. At that calm growing light. It was supposed to come to us, he said quietly. But it ended up with them. Sonyeon locked it up, Minu said. Yes. And now the path is opening, but there is no guide. Silence. Then it has to be freed, Dizong said. Then, Sojin agreed, we need to go into the Arkansas. They went at night. Not all 5 of them. Sojin, Dizong, Yunhai as the guide, Jonghwan, and unexpectedly Minsu. The boy came to Sojin himself and silently showed him the glass sphere. The dark cloud inside was moving fast, glowing with a faint reflected blue light. Sojin looked at the sphere. Nodded. They sailed quietly. Yunhai knew where the guards were at night, she had told them in advance. The northern side of the ark was weaker, the rafts moored there, movement was routine. They climbed aboard. Yunhai led confidently, without hesitation. 3 turns, a small staircase down. A dark corridor. A door. Not locked, simply closed. Sojin was surprised for a second. Then he understood, Sonyeon had not believed anyone could get this far. He opened it. The creature was small. Not like the huge ones they had seen under the water. Different, smaller, thinner. As if it were young. It lay in a large wooden tank filled with water, alive, moving, but slowly. The light was weak, almost gone out. Bluish, intermittent. Sojin stood by the tank and looked. Minsa took out the sphere. The cloud inside flared brightly at once. Blue. The creature in the tank raised. Sojin did not know what to call it, the part of its body that was closest to the surface. And answered with light. Weakly, but it answered. Minsu stood motionless. Held the sphere with both hands. He looked at the creature with the expression people have when something that has long been incomprehensible suddenly becomes clear. The sphere, he said quietly, is part of them. What? Dizong asked. This sphere, it is from there. From their world. The chest gave it to me because. Minsu stumbled. Because I was supposed to return it. Sojin looked at the sphere. Then at the creature. Then at the boy. Minsu, he said. Put the sphere into the water. The boy lowered his hand into the tank. Unclenched his fingers. The sphere sank to the bottom. 1 second. 2. Then the creature's light flared bright and pure, like a blue flame. The tank lit up from within. Sojin shut his eyes. When he opened his eyes, the tank was ordinary. Water. Wood. The creature was no longer in it. The sphere too. Only water, and on the bottom of the tank a faint bluish trace, fading. It left, Zhongwan said. Through the bottom. Through the water, Sojin said. That is its medium. He stood and looked at the empty tank. Then behind him the sound of footsteps. Slow. Confident. Sojin turned around. In the doorway stood a man about 40. Not tall, not large, ordinary in appearance. Dark clothing, neat. His face calm, not cruel, not frightened. Simply calm, like a man whom nothing surprises. Ryu Sonyun. Sojin understood without an introduction. They looked at each other in silence for several seconds. I was waiting for you to come, Sonyun said. His voice was even, without threat. Waiting long. Since the day Taeho came back and said you knew about personal chests. Sonyun walked into the room. Stood by the empty tank. Looked at the water. You let it go. Yes. Why? Because it should not have been here. Sonyun nodded slowly. Possibly. Pause. But I had almost figured out how their light works. A little more. You would not have figured it out, Sojin said. Because the light is not a mechanism. It is not a tool that can be studied and used. Sonyun looked at him. Then what is it? A language, Sojin said. They speak with it. And the sphere that the chest gave the boy, it was a word. Return. Pause. You were keeping with you a word that had to be returned. Sonyun was silent for a long time. Then he looked at the empty tank. I wanted to find the path, he said quietly. Only that. The path is not found through violence, Sojin said. Did you read that man's diary? From the previous cycle? Sonyun looked at him. How do you know about the diary? The chest gave it to us. Not to you. Long silence. Quiet beyond the door. The Ark's guards did not come. Sojin noticed that Sonyun had not called them. Why? What do you want? Sonyun finally asked. Nothing from you, Sojin said. The western light is intensifying. In one day, at most 2, the path south will open. We need to go together, at least 9 people, according to the one who remembers the cycles. Who remembers the cycles? Minu. He is with us. Sonyun was silent again. Those 4 whom you released, he said. Did they leave voluntarily? Yes. Then you gave them a choice. Sonyun looked at the empty tank. Which I did not do. Sojin did not answer. It was not a question. I have 23 people on the Ark, Sonyun said. I know. How many of them are you taking? Everyone who wants to go, Sojin said. Voluntarily. And me? Sojin looked at him. That is your choice, he said. Not mine. They returned to the base before dawn. No one at the base was asleep. They were waiting. Minu sat at the western edge of the roof and looked at the light, which was now clearly visible, no longer just lighter than the sky, but separate, living, slowly pulsing. How long? Sojin asked, sitting down beside him. Tomorrow, Minu said. I can feel it. Tomorrow. Sojin nodded. Sonyun said he would come. With those who want to. Do you believe him? Sojin thought for a second. I believe that he wants to reach the shore. The rest we will see. Minu looked at the light. In the 6th cycle, he said, there was a similar man. He did bad things, then understood. Reached the shore last, almost did not make it. But he made it. So it is possible. Everything is possible. That does not mean easy. They sat beside each other in silence. The water was motionless. The sky in the west glowed evenly. Then from the water right by the western side of the roof light rose. Not one. Many. The Watchers. More than ever before, Sojin saw at least 10 sources of light under the surface. They gathered by the western edge of the base and shone evenly, calmly, in one direction. To the west. They are showing, Minu said quietly. Where to go? Yes. Sojin stood up. Woke everyone. In the morning the ark came to the base. Not about the whole structure. It was larger than the base, heavy, cumbersome, but moving. Son Yun stood at the bow. People behind him. Sojin counted, 18. 5 remained on the ark, their silhouettes were visible. Not everyone wants to. Dizong asked. They're right, Sojin said. Son Yun stepped onto the base. Silently stood aside. Taeho walked behind him with the same pleasant face, but there was no smile. Without a smile, Taeho looked simply young and confused. Sojin passed his gaze over everyone. 16 of his own. 18 from the Arkansas Minu, 35 people. Minimum 9. Maximum 27, Minu had said about the previous cycles. 35 was above the maximum. Sojin looked at Minu. For the first time the old man shrugged a little uncertainly. In every cycle something is new, the old man said. They set out an hour later. The base did not sail, it was not meant for long-distance travel. But the rafts could. The ark could. Everything that could be moved was moved. Sojin personally chopped through the anchor rope. With the axe, in one blow. The rope went into the water. The base rocked for the first time in several days. It entered the current, which had appeared on its own, as if it had been waiting for that moment. To the west. The watchers moved beneath them. This was visible through the gaps in the boards, in the clear morning water, dozens of blue lights moving in the same direction. Beside them, deeper, beside them again. The fisherman Yongguk stood at the edge and looked down. They are seeing us off, he said. Or leading us, Sojin said. Same thing, said the fisherman. Sometimes the same thing. The passage took half a day. Not an hour and not a week. Half a day of steady, calm movement across water that itself carried them. The current was not strong, but constant. Going against it would have been difficult. Going with it required almost no effort. Sojin worked the paddle not because it was necessary, but because he could not stand idle. That had long been in him, hands without work felt wrong. Beside him Sun Hyen was rowing awkwardly, but diligently. Mr. Sojin, he said without taking his eyes off the paddle. What will happen when we get there? I do not know. Does Minu know? Minu says darkness. Then you wake up. Where? He did not know exactly. It is different every time. Pause. But not here. Sun Hyen rowed in silence for several minutes. I like it here, he said quietly. Sojin looked at him. What? Well, not like it, Sun Hyen corrected himself. It is frightening. Cold. Incomprehensible. But I have done so much in these 2 weeks. Learned so much. So many people. He fell silent. Back there, before this, I was just studying. Sitting in the library. Cramming. Pause. Here I kept the journal. Built. Made an alarm system out of cans. It felt like I was doing something real. Sojin listened. You were, he said. That journal, it is important. If Minu is right about the cycles, the next people may find it. Sun Hyen looked at the journal under his coat, he always kept it there. I will leave it in a chest, he said. Before the shore. Good. In the middle of the journey, something happened. The Ark Sangyon's large structure began to lag behind. Heavy, unwieldy, it did not move with the current as easily. Sojin noticed. Looked back. Son Yun stood at the bow of the ark and looked ahead. Saw that it was falling behind. Did not ask for help. Sojin thought for a second. Then said to Byamjin, rope. Long one. Throw it to the Arkansas. Byamjin looked at him. Pull them. Pull them, Sojin confirmed. After everything After everything, Sojin said. Yes. Byamjin looked for another second. Then stood up, took the rope. They threw it over. On the ark they caught it. Taeho caught it, tied it on. The ark drew closer. Son-yun looked at Sojin from a distance. Said nothing. Simply nodded. Once. Slowly. The shore appeared as a line. First a dark mark on the horizon. Then volume, color, details. Land. Real land, not the roof of a building, not a wooden deck. Land. Someone from the Ark people began to cry, not loudly, simply quietly, the way people cry from relief they have held back too long. The fisherman Yongguk stood and smiled broadly, without words. Yunjong looked and remained silent. Then said quietly, I thought I would not believe it until I stood on it with my own feet. Soon you will, Sojin said. There were about 300 meters left to the shore when the watchers stopped. Sojin felt it, the movement beneath them ceased. The blue lights that had moved beside them the whole way became still. He lay face down on the deck, right by a gap between the boards. Looked. The huge eye, the same one he had seen on the first night. Bluish-white, calm. Looking at him from below. Sojin looked back. For several seconds. Then the creature began to descend slowly, the way something descends when it has no need to hurry. Down. Deeper. The blue light faded gradually. Until it disappeared. Silence. Sojin lay on the boards a little longer. Then stood up. Row, he said. They reached the shore at noon. Sojin jumped into the shallow knee-deep water and walked toward the shore over stones and sand. Came out. Stood. The ground under his feet was solid. Wet from the surf, the shore was damp, with dark sand. But solid. Real. He stood and looked at the water. 35 people came ashore in silence, each in their own way. Some immediately sat down on the ground. Some simply stood. Some, like Yunjong, crouched and took a handful of sand, as if checking reality. Minu came ashore last. Slowly, with difficulty. Sojin offered his hand, the old man accepted it. Stood on the shore. Looked around with the expression of a man who had seen this many times, but each time a little differently. What is it like here? Sojin asked. Similar, Minu said. But not identical. He looked farther inland. There the forest began, living, green. Last time there was a cliff here. Now a forest. It changes. It changes, the old man agreed. Then Minu took something from inside his coat. A metal plate, the same kind the chests had given. But different, without an inscription. Blank. Take it, he told Sojin. What is it? I do not know yet. In the 5th cycle the chest gave me the same one right before the shore. There, farther in, he nodded toward the forest, there was a place where the inscription appeared by itself. What was written there? Minu looked at him. In the 5th cycle, one thing. For you, probably something else. How do you know it is for me? Because the chest gave it to me, but it is not mine. I can feel it. Pause. I always can. Sojin took the plate. Put it inside his coat. Sun Hyan found him by the water. Took out the journal. Opened the last filled page and went on writing. Quickly, in small neat handwriting. Sojin looked over his shoulder. Day 18. Shore. 35 people. Everyone is alive. The journey took half a day. The watchers led the way. On the shore, land, forest, silence. No chests or water are visible. For now. What there was, a base made of a roof and rafts. 14 days of building. 16 items an hour at the end. A net, an anchor, a second tier, a map, a diary, a glass sphere. What matters for those who come next? The chest senses intention. The watchers are not enemies. Be careful with the northern camp. Minu knows the rules. What is unknown? Who created the chests? Why the cycles? What lies farther on the shore? He closed the journal. Put it into the chest. Closed the lid. Left it by the water. Then looked at Sojin. Do you think anyone will find it? They will find the chest, Sojin said. The way we found the diary. And the journal? The journal will be given to the one who needs it. Sun Hyen nodded. Looked at the water one last time. Shall we go? Let's go. The forest was alive. That was the first thing Sojin felt physically. After 2 weeks of gray sky and dark water, the greenery felt almost deafening. The smell of earth, wet leaves, resin. Birds far away, but audible. They walked as a group, not as a crowd, in an organized way. Dizong in front, Sojin in the middle, Minu beside him. Sonyun walked to the side, not at the rear, not at the head. Separately, like a man who had not yet decided in which part of the column his place was. Taeho walked beside him. Without a smile. Without a smile, Taeho was simply a young tired man. Sojin was probably seeing him truly for the first time now. The forest was dense, thick, but not impassable. There was no path, but there was space between the trees. The soil was soft, slightly springy, as if it had long been under water and then dried out. Minsa walked beside Sojin silently, as always, but differently. He had lost the sphere together with the creature in Sangyon's tank. Without the sphere his hands were empty, and sometimes he looked at his palms as if searching for something that was no longer there. Do you regret it? Sojin asked. Minsa thought. No, he said. It returned where it was supposed to. I only regret that I did not have time to understand better. Understand what? The language. Pause. There at the end, when I lowered the sphere into the water, I understood something. For a second. Then it was gone. What did you understand? Minsa looked ahead. That the water is not a place where they live. It is what they are. He fell silent. They are the water. All the water. Everywhere. Sojin walked and thought about it. All the water. Everywhere. That means this whole world flooded, gray, with rafts and chests. That was their world. Alive. And they let people into it. Why? The place appeared after an hour of walking. A small clearing, round, as if on purpose. In the center was a stone. Flat, broad, grown into the ground. Sojin felt it immediately, even before he came closer. He took out the plate. Placed it on the stone. Waited. Nothing happened for several seconds. Then slowly, as if someone were writing from within on the empty surface, letters began to appear. Not scratches exactly appearing, the way frost appears on glass. Quietly, without drama. Sojin read as they appeared. The others stood around and kept silent. You built a place where one can live. You returned what was lost. You led those who were going the wrong way. This is not the end of the cycle. This is the first. The next world is waiting. You remember now. Sojin read the inscription twice. Then raised his eyes to Minu. The old man was looking at the plate with the expression Sojin had already learned to read. Not surprise. Recognition. You remember now, Sojin repeated. Is this what is written to you in every cycle? Yes, Minu said quietly. Every time. In different words but one thing. So that means, you. Sojin looked at him. You remember more each time because each time this is written to you. Yes. And this time it is written to me. Minu nodded. Sojin stood in the clearing, with the metal plate in his hands, and felt something strange, not fear, not joy. Something third. As if something large had quietly fallen into place, not with a crash, not with explanations. It simply fell into place. In the next cycle, Sojin said slowly, I will remember. Everything that was here, Minu said. Yes. And I will be able to help others faster. Faster, and better, the old man said. Each time a little better. Silence in the clearing. The trees stood still. Birds were singing. Sonyun stood a little apart listening. Looking at the plate. So this is not punishment, he said quietly. The cycles. No, Minu said. Then what? The old man looked at him. Training, he said simply. Darkness did not come at night. It was simply that at some moment the clearing became darker. Not abruptly, smoothly, the way day fades away. Sojin looked at the sky, it did not change, remained light. but around them it was growing dark. "There it is," Minu said calmly. No one panicked, not a single person out of the 35. Sojin noticed that. Strange darkness, the unknown, and yet no panic. As if they were tired of being afraid. Or had understood enough. "Mr. Sojin," Sun Hyen said beside him. Thank you." Sojin looked at him. Sun Hyen was smiling calmly, without strain. "For what?" "For the base. For not abandoning anyone." He paused. "For the cans on the wire." Sojin almost laughed for the first time in 18 days. "The cans were your rope. The idea was yours." The darkness was thickening. Sojin managed to see the faces one last time. The fisherman with a smile. Yunjong, looking straight ahead. Byamjin, arms crossed with the look of a man who had done what had to be done. Dizong calm, as always. Mayan already, it seemed, planning something, with the expression she had when she looked at the corner of the second-tier structure. Minsa looks at his palms. Then raises his eyes. Nods. Minu closes his eyes. Smiles quietly, like a man who can finally rest. Son Yun stands straight. Looks at the plate in Sojin's hands. Something changes in his face, not radically. Something unnecessary simply leaves. Taeho is very young in the darkness. Without a smile, but that is good. A real face is better than a proper one. Nam Yunhai, the teacher who swam 1.5 kilometers with the chest tied to herself, looks at the forest. As if memorizing it. Darkness. Complete, soft, without pressure. Sojin stood in it and felt strangely that this was not the end. Not frightening. Like standing in a room with your eyes closed and knowing that the room has not gone anywhere. He squeezed the plate in his hand. He could no longer see the letters on it, it was dark. But he remembered every word. The next world is waiting. You remember now. He remembered. End of the first cycle. Somewhere in the darkness, a chest. Wooden, with metal corners. Empty inside. Carved on the inside of the lid, wait. An hour. An arrow on the lid points west. An arrow for the first time. It was not there in previous cycles.